Human ignorance has no bounds, and there's no better representation of this than Dying Light. Today's video will go over how the TH virus is starting to evolve, mutate into something far worse than we have ever seen in the games. But first, let's go over some history and how the virus has previously mutated. The origins of the Haran virus are relatively unknown. All we know is after the outbreak, the rest of the world sealed off the city in attempts to prevent an epidemic. Their efforts paid off, but at the cost of abandoning an entire city to a lethal virus. We know eventually the GRE went in and got their hands on a sample of the virus. With their scientists working tirelessly, a vaccine was created. The GRE promised to stop further experimentation and research, but as we know, human greed has no bounds. So they began working on weaponizing the Haran virus, and soon the THV was created. They had successfully created a weaponized strain of the Haran virus. However, not long after, the virus would begin to terrorize the world. Somehow, the virus was released into the world, and any effort to contain it was futile, as this new strain was more contagious than the previous virus. In a matter of weeks, half the population became infected, and in a few years, the fall happened. The virus was strong enough to bring humans to the brink of extinction. Only a small bastion of hope remained, the city of Villador. However, even within the walls of the city, the virus had already begun mutating. Something we have to understand is that this virus has never behaved. Since the days of the Haran virus, unexplainable mutations have occurred. For starters, we have the variants. These mutations can easily be explained as a virus behaving differently with each victim. Fair enough, right? Well, the virus was simply mutating based on a person's biology or environment. However, then in the countryside, we encountered the freaks of nature. These infected were a result of the virus mutating, evolving into something else. But before it was allowed to evolve, the Haran virus was scrapped for the THV, and this virus completely mutated into something else because of its environment. The chemicals, aka the yellow dust surrounding the city, completely altered and changed the infected. We know this to be the case as we can finally see how these infected are supposed to look like in Dying Light the Beast. The virus adjusted itself and utilized the chemicals to make itself stronger. My point is, the virus has always been actively changing, but never to this degree. In completing the quest for Starchild and the Beast, we learned the virus has, in the literal sense, evolved. Initially in the game, we believed the chimeras created by the Baron are the new big bad. However, lurking in the shadows, a new threat was growing stronger. Actually, there's a high chance the virus was always trying to evolve, but it never could. I'll explain this later, but for now, let's go back to the first quest. Here we are sent on a mission to acquire a piece of bark from a tree. When we arrive, we encounter an ominous tree with some kind of fleshy biomass coming out of it. The entire area is surrounded by corpses and infected. When we stab into the tree, it screams out in agony, alerting all the infected around the area. Blood spews out of it as we tear out the piece of bark. Looking closer to the piece of wood, it appears like it's made from some type of flesh. When Kyle questions Starchild, his hypothesis on the matter is that the virus has somehow managed to jump species. And for whatever reason, the dead are attracted to the tree and go there to die. This alone brings up so many possibilities. If the virus can now infect other species, including nature, there would be almost no way of ever stopping it. All we've seen up to this point are infected humans. We know even in real life there is interspecies transmission, but it has never been to this degree. Plant and human viruses typically don't cross between each other, and the fact the virus has done this to this level should be extremely terrifying. But what is the purpose of this, and why now? Well, we might have been given the answer to this question. The next quest we're given leads us down a tunnel. In the entrance, we find the Baron's men attempting to blow up the whole tunnel. There, we learn a few things from a note written by one of the Baron's soldiers. For starters, they have discovered something within the tunnel that they want to destroy before the Baron learns of it. They fear once he does that he'll ask them to recover a sample. The soldier describes how the infected are working together and carrying out ambushes on them. Furthermore, we learn that something is keeping the soldiers in the tunnel, almost as if brainwashing them. The soldiers were terrified of this place, and for a good reason. When we enter the tunnel, we discover that Rick, in exile, has been living here for a while. We learn he made contact with something. After a while, it seems to have him go deeper into the tunnel, where eventually it absorbs him. There's also various pictures of eyes all over his camp for whatever reason. Once we open the door to the tunnel passage, a voice speaks to us telling us they won't hurt us. Whatever this thing is, it possesses the same telepathic abilities as the exiles in being able to control the infected. The entire area is covered in biomass and infected. The deeper we go, the worse it gets. Eventually, we come across a soldier who seems to be praying to something. Perhaps this entity can do more than control the infected, but perhaps it can have influence over the human mind. The deeper we go, the worse the biomass becomes, and even living infected have begun merging with it. When we finally reach this entity, it lets us know it's been aware of our presence for quite a while. All we know from it is that it calls itself We the Unity. The Swarm. This thing begins demanding for us to become a part of it. If we allow it to consume us, they can become something better, something perfect. It appears this thing wants to absorb sentient volatiles to gain their powers, which is why it's so eager for Kyle to join them. So here comes my theory about how the virus has always wanted to evolve. For starters, in all the games, we've seen piles of biomass. At first glance, it seems like feeding grounds or graveyards. But what if this entire time it's been wanting to evolve, we just couldn't hear them? What if because of the Baron creating the exiles and all the other chimeras, it has given this entity the key it required to finally evolve? See, this thing made contact with Rick and eventually tricked him into joining it. By doing this, it gained the second stage of its evolution, a voice. And the reason why it wants Kyle so badly is because with him, it'll gain a body. Before these sentient volatiles were created, nothing could actually hold the power of the virus and it just become another mindless infected. But because of the Baron, this hidden entity has now awoken. We have also seen other cases where extremely abnormal infected have been created by the virus. These two are the Night Hunter and the Revenant. They don't behave like all the other infected. For starters, the other variants are typically seen trying to either spread the virus or consume everything. But those two seem to break away from this rule. The Night Hunter seems to have a greater purpose than the rest. Its origins are unknown, but we do know it is trying to protect volatile nests. Its entire biology is an amalgamation of all the other infected. The Revenant, for whatever reason, can do the impossible. It can revive fallen infected and even make them stronger. These two variants shouldn't exist, but perhaps they might be a failed attempt for an evolution. With the Tree of Madness and the Unity, we have finally been given a glimpse of what this thing is trying to become. Perhaps all along, evolution for the virus was inevitable. Now what would this entail? Well, up to this point, all we've been given are infected humans, but what if in the next game we discover animals, insects, and nature itself starting to turn? What if the ultimate goal of the virus is to become one with the planet itself? That's why we see it infecting nature and starting to gain sentience. Perhaps all of this is leading to a great merge where the infection fuses with the planet itself. It's hard to say without actually knowing the origins of the virus, but basically what I'm trying to say is, what if this is similar to the Brethren moons of Dead Space? The virus itself could have already been a weapon sent by something else. There's a chance aliens exist in this universe, but it is unclear. But yeah, hopefully in the next game we see this thing start to evolve even further, but there's a chance the next villain could be the GRE itself. I would like to see the virus jumping species and start infecting animals. Most zombie games completely ignore animals, but what if we get a similar case to Days Gone, where there's bears and wolves that are infected? And this could further serve as a way to set up the Unity, the Swarm as the next big bad. Oh, and I almost forgot, but Kyle does seem to kill it at the end, but all he did was shoot one zombie and there appeared to be more, so there's nothing stopping the entity to transfer its consciousness into other infected. Now, he did blow up the tunnel, but the entity could control other infected to get it out of there, but who knows, perhaps it is dead and we'll never see it again. But you have now reached the end of the video. If you have any theories about the virus evolving, please let us know, because my theory and points could be completely wrong and I want to hear what you guys have to say about all this. Like, sub, or don't, as long as you enjoy the video. Goodbye.